Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are at the archery range, so any noises you hear in the background will actually be my wife. We're going to go ahead and take a video of her in a little bit anyway, just because it really irritates her and she has made it adamantly clear she doesn't want to be on the YouTube channel that I've created. But she doesn't really get a say in that, and we're going to do it anyway. So we're going to talk about the bows. Hey guys, and welcome back. Sorry about the jacket. My wife keeps telling me I look like a blueberry here. It's cold, so the range we're in right now is about 35 degrees. I in no way, shape, or form am taking off my jacket to freeze for the purposes of making a video. I'm sorry, I don't have enough followers or subscribers to risk my own health. But as previously promised, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. So this is the Scott Hex, more specifically the Longhorn Hex, and it's got a wrist strap, and it is it's a hybrid back tension release. And the way it works is it doesn't have that middle finger loop. So when you're pulling it back and you actually have it on your wrist, you're going to pull it straight back like this, and you're going to put your hands behind that release, and it's going to pull back exactly like this. And this is how it's going to be set up on your wrist. And then when you want to shoot it, you're going to move your two fingers, your middle finger and your ring finger on your pulling hand, and you're going to start pulling back. You'll hear a click and then it'll release. It's a really, really, really awesome release. That cured a lot of the ailments that she was having and that I was having about not using proper back tension when you're shooting the arrow. So again, for the Longhorn Hunter, right, and the Longhorn Hex, or the Hex, what I really think about these is, I don't know if I would necessarily hunt with them. I like the control that a trigger release has, but what I would really, really recommend is getting them and using them as a training aid. Really, I think that's where your money's going to be made with these kind of releases. Alright guys, welcome. As promised, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about some of the gear that I brought along with me and some of the stuff that I really like, and then we'll go ahead and we'll break into like what Hannah has, what she likes, what she doesn't like. Even if she's not willing to come on camera, I'll still talk about it on her behalf. She's standing there, you might hear her in the background kind of correcting me if she doesn't like it. So the first thing I have is this Scott Longhorn Hunter Hex, the Longhorn Hunter release, and it's kind of a back tension release, but not really, in that it also has a it's got the wrist brace on it. And I'm a huge fan of these. I wanted to learn a back tension release because I had absolutely horrible trash follow through. I mean, I wasn't pulling at all. I was doing it almost all and then being stagnant as opposed to putting back tension on. And that's really where these releases come into play and where they make their money. So the way that these really work are you're going to put it on your wrist, or you can just hold it. And as the release sits here, it will not release. You can pull on it all day. You can put as much tension on it as you want. It will not release. And then as you rotate through, when you get to a point of rotation, the release will actually do its job and release. Now the way that this will work is when you pull back, you want to put your index finger in here, and it'll keep it more straight. And then as you go to pull or shoot, you'll pull back, pull back, pull back, pull back, and the goal is to kind of dip your elbow and pull straight back, and it'll cause the release to eventually release. And this is actually more of a true back tension. It just is integrated with this really handy dandy wrist strap. The other thing that we have is just your standard trigger release. Nothing special about it. I'm not even sure what brand it is. It was one that was recommended to us by someone who's really, really good and who actually has been working with bows for a very long time. So I got the back tension, and it immediately tightened my groups significantly because it actually forced me to really follow through with my shots as opposed to just kind of punching the trigger, right? And that's really what I was doing, is I was punching and pushing forward, which is apparently a really common mistake. One of our friends who's been shooting for a lot longer than I have and who actually has some serious understanding about this is the one who explained that to me, and she actually is the one who recommended a back tension release to kind of cure that ailment. Now I don't shoot anywhere near as good with the back tension release as I do with the regular finger trigger release because I've been shooting rifles my whole life. But as soon as I practice with the back tension release, my groups with the actual trigger release got cut in half. I mean, I went from not being able to hit anything to now I'm actually a pretty decent shot out to about 30 or 35 yards. I'm trying to get a little bit better. I don't want to start hunting yet because I just don't believe I have the skills. So please go ahead and comment below if you see anything that you like or you don't like, and I'm really hoping that this is helpful to more people than it is harmful. Thank you. Alright guys, welcome back. So we're still at the range here, and some stuff that Hannah mentioned to me that she wanted me to say. She's a little nervous to be on camera.
I am not.
Well, yeah, so you heard her, right? So she doesn't mind her voice being on camera, but because I didn't give her time to like adequately prepare notes or whatever, she blatantly refuses to be on camera. So some stuff that she wanted to talk about. Babe, can I see your wrist guard? No, I mean, or you can, yeah. All right, so these, right, so it is more likely that women are going to be double jointed in their elbows. So something that she learned the hard way was she got smacked one of the first days we were on the range by the bowstring and had a bruise for, I mean, weeks.
We'll insert a picture here.
Yeah, I mean, if we can figure out how to do that. I'm not exactly technologically advanced here. But she had a bruise for like 2 weeks. And so one thing that I would say is, if you are flexible, and you're not a big old dumb hillbilly that's 6'5", 265, what I would really recommend to you is investing in one of those. They're like, what was it, like $10?
Yeah.
It was like $10, and I don't think she's had any real bruises or injuries since then. And especially like if you're shooting when it's warmer and you're going to be shooting in a t-shirt, like it's worth its weight in gold. The other thing is if you have an adjustable sight, right? So she's shooting a 5-pin, I shoot a 1-pin. Really make sure that you bring your sight adjustment tool every time you go to the range, because what we found is when we come in different weather conditions, when we're wearing different amount of clothing, our groups will really change where they're hitting, especially if we change like a if we change a release, like going from like one of the back tension releases to a regular trigger release, it really changes the point of impact of your group, and it'll change it substantially. So what we really recommend is bringing your adjustment tool with you every single time you go to the range, and then keeping it in your bag too, so that you don't forget it or you don't leave it in the car. And then a proper hairstyle is really important as well, right? So like, don't wear your hair down. Braids or a ponytail are absolutely wonderful, but you don't want that to get caught in your bowstring. You don't want it to be in the way, especially if you have a lot longer of hair. And then trying out different releases and really doing your research prior to going and prior to getting into it. I know that seems very intuitive, but a lot of people just really kind of blindly take the word of whoever's selling them something at a store. And a lot of the time the guy at the store is a great resource, but also about 50% of the time too, he's a person who's just trying to sell something. And that's really one of the concerns that we have is whenever we're making recommendations to people, is are we making the best recommendation with what we have? And as you noticed, I kind of took my jacket off. It warmed up a little bit in here since we've been in here as well. And so, we're in the middle of winter. It is cold. We are wearing long sleeve shirts and everything else. And it makes a significant difference of, when you're shooting, even indoors. So I would advise you to really, look at where you're going to be shooting, the facilities you're going to be having, what works the best for you. And if you're getting into it, buying a few extra pieces of gear initially can really save you a lot of headache, heartache, and pains over the course of time. And then whether or not, do you want a whisker biscuit, do you want a fall away rest? Because her bow came with a whisker biscuit, mine came with a fall away rest. And what we found is the whisker biscuit on short vein fletchings will really eat them, whereas the followaways, it doesn't really matter. They really shoot those short vein fletchings well, but the whisker biscuits on the long vein fletchings, we haven't had any kind of an issue out of them, and everybody keeps telling us that we should replace it because it'll eat those fletchings. And that may be true, it may not be. We've really only been shooting regularly for about 6 months now. But we're still shooting the same 6 arrows that we originally purchased for the bow, and we've broken 2 of them from missing or stacking. Hannah actually stacked arrows and broke one of them, or missing and hitting something outside, or the frame of the target, or the chains that hold it up, or the eye bolts that are in it. Whatever the case may be, that happened initially a while ago. But those arrows have been through the ringer, and we've had no issues with the Whisker Biscuit as far as long vein fletchings. We're also shooting Easton arrows. They came very highly recommended from the gentleman who set us up. So, you know, that might be another part of it, is he's a renowned expert on these. So not necessarily world renowned, but locally renowned for where we are. So I really hope you guys have gained something out of watching this, and it's not just us rambling on. Thank you so much, and we appreciate your time, and we appreciate your views. Alright everyone, something else that I thought of that I would really like to speak about is everything you kind of have to look at while you're shooting a bow, right? So while you're looking down your peep sights and you're looking at your pin, either a single or a multi-pin sight, some things that you really are going to have to look at are the level, right? So that level is very important when you're shooting a bow. I understand, I can't explain it, I'm not that familiar with how it works, but what I can tell you is if you're not looking at that level, you're not going to hit what you're aiming at. Focus on keeping, and you want to push with your arm holding the bow, and you want to pull with your arm that has the release in it. And you want to think you're trying to separate it, while you're shooting. And then when you go to do your release, you want to try and hold everything not still, but dynamic. And it needs to be still. I know that sounds very complicated, but you want to think push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, level, 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 breathe, release. And I know that sounds very complicated, but while you're looking down the bow and while you're making those shots, it's a whole lot easier to kind of understand while you're looking down it. So remember, push, pull, level, 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 release, and breathe. Right, please don't forget to breathe while you're shooting a bow. It's something that I find myself doing all the time, especially coming from shooting rifles, shooting handguns, where I'm thinking about being as still as I possibly can, and I'm not being dynamic. And that's really where the long or the back tension releases kind of take the bacon, is with that push pull, because the release itself won't actually work unless you're using proper form. Alright guys, hello. So one thing I realized that we didn't cover that I said we'd cover at the beginning of the video was the price of everything, kind of the cost, where you should expect to be in ballpark for getting into, you know, shooting. And I don't mean anything crazy, anything super fancy. This is like what we spent, and I think we got some pretty good deals. I ordered some stuff offline that came pretty highly rated. So we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk through it, and then at the end I'll give you a ballpark of how much you should realistically be willing to spend and looking at spending when you're getting into it. So the first are these, if you like these Scott Hex releases and these Scott Longhorn releases. This one I think was about $100 or $115 for the Longhorn Hex, right? Again, that's the one that doesn't have the index finger loop. It's kind of the hybrid back tension release. It works really well. If you're shooting something like this, you know, I would add it onto a trigger release, right? So if you're looking at getting both of these, you can get them both offline. I think it ended up costing probably around $150, $160 for the pair of them. Again, this one was only $45 or $50. There are way better trigger releases available. We just didn't get them. I mean, this is what was recommended, and we kind of learned with it, and we really started to enjoy it. So again, I would get these as a pair. I'd get yourself a normal trigger release, and I'd get one of these Scott Hex Longhorn back tension releases, right? These kind of hybrids. Then if you're looking for a normal back tension release, again, I got the Scott Longhorn Hunter, right? And this is, it's got the wrist brace on it. That was something I really wanted because I do hunt, rifle hunt. I'm looking at getting into bow hunting. So this one I think was about $110. Maybe I overpaid, maybe I didn't. I'm not really sure. Again, same release that my wife shoots. Just a regular plain Jane, nothing special trigger release. I think there's like 45 bucks. So as a pair, 155, 160, somewhere in there for them. And that's just, again, that's just for your releases, and that's if you want to get something like this, it's going to force you to pull back on it. So as you saw earlier in the video, right, the video of me first shooting, that was actually one of our first days. It was one of my first times ever shooting a bow. So if you're watching it, obviously it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, nor was it really intended to be. That was just to kind of fill up a little bit of the space while I was talking, and I hope you guys gained something from watching it. But yeah, you could see I pulled back a little bit, but it wasn't nearly as much as I do now, and these back tensions really force you to do that. Next, I'm going to talk about our bows, right? So this is Hannah's bow. This is the Mission by Matthews Radic Like I said, she has a multi-pin sight on it, and hers is actually illuminated. So you twist this, and it will cause it looks almost like a black light to shine on those pins, and it'll illuminate them. It makes it a little bit easier to see, and they really show up well. There's her whisker biscuit I was talking about. If anybody has never seen one before, I imagine most of you probably have, but if you haven't, that's a whisker biscuit. And again, I would not recommend using whisker biscuits with short vein fletchings. That's what we've been told to do. We haven't ever done it. We've only shot the long vein fletchings through it. And I don't know how many times we've shot this bow, or she shot this bow, but it has been dozens, hundreds of times, probably close to 1,000 times. She's fired it over the course of 6 months. And we are still shooting the same 6 Easton arrows that we purchased the day we got the bow. So what you're kind of looking for on price is this whole setup with your bow, you know, your multi-pin sight, the whisker biscuit, the bow case, right? She got a Mission by Matthews bow case, and this release. I think we walked along with 6 Easton arrows with fletchings and field points on them. I believe we walked out of there paying for everything somewhere right about $440 for a full setup, you know, ready to go to the range. And of course we got it from a shop that had a range, so he gave us some free range time with it too. And that of course adds on to the value of what you're getting, because you're gonna have to shoot it somewhere. And that's something else I wanted to talk to you about. The archery club we're members of is open 24 hours a day. They have an indoor portion of it. You can go turn on the lights. If you want to shoot at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can. They also have an outdoor range where you can go shoot. If you can shoot in the dark, you can shoot in the dark. They don't really care. And then there is a 3D archery course that you're more than welcome to walk at any point in time. They ask for a $10 donation anytime you shoot the 3D archery course. And that's because of the increased price and how expensive those 3D targets really are. I mean, they're very, very pricey. So they ask for that donation knowing that you're going to hit them, and hitting them does tear them up a little bit quicker. But for everything, you know, it's $200 a year for her and I, or it might have been $225. By the way, it was less than $250 for the year. Unlimited times coming. They ask that 2 days that you kind of help clean up and pick up around it. So you figure by the time you spend your money on your bow and everything like that, if you're of smaller stature and you're okay, again, we bought both of our bows used, but if you're a little bit smaller, including all of your range time, being able to shoot it, everything like that, you know, you're really looking right around $700 for your first year. And then maybe a little bit more when you break your arrows. 6 arrows was $45 from where we went. That seems to be a pretty run-of-the-mill price for a half dozen arrows. And then I would like to talk about my bow, because maybe you're a little bit bigger. Maybe you want a bigger bow. You want a faster bow. So this is the Hoyt Defiant Turbo. I think it's a turbo. Yep, it's the Hoyt Defiant Turbo with the DFX cams. Right, and this one came exactly like it is. Like, I didn't spend anything crazy on it. So I got this bow used for $600, and it came with the fall-away rest. It came with the single pin fully adjustable sight that's magnified. It came with a stabilizer here. And it also came with a quiver that I removed because I didn't really like it. I don't really need it. And I didn't get a more expensive bow. I didn't get a newer bow. I didn't get anything crazy because I felt like I had to have it. This was actually the only bow they had in the shop that was used that fit me. And paying, I was pretty ecstatic for, again, I'm fairly large, that they had a bow that was in my size that would fit me that was used. I got it for less than $600 out the door, including everything that is on it. I paid an extra $40 for the case, and then that included my trigger rest as well. So that was $650 with 6 arrows. And so, I mean, it cost me almost an extra $200, which we kind of expected going into it when we purchased the bow, just because of how large I am. Then we kind of expected that we were going to need a bigger bow and it was going to cost us more money. I wasn't super picky about brand. I wasn't super picky about anything, but I really grew to like it a lot. You know, whether you shoot a Hoyt or whether you shoot a Matthews, whether you shoot a Mission or whatever the case may be, a Bear, PSE, Bowtech, Diamond, anything like that. You know, I think you're going to be looking at a very similar price tag of when you get into it used. And then if you were to add on, you add on $200 for a membership, you're going to be right at about $1,000, and that's going to get you a bow that's a couple years old, really still relevant technology. It's not like it's outdated, it's not like it's antiquated, but it is a little bit older, and that was kind of to be expected because we didn't want to spend the money on a brand new bow. And again, I think really it really is going to depend on how much you want to invest right off the bat is how much it's going to cost, because you could easily go and spend over $2,000 on a brand new bow. I mean, easily. Like, we were walking around the store and just putting together a new bow. We were over $1,500 and we weren't even ready to shoot yet. I mean, we didn't have arrows, we didn't have a case, and we didn't have a membership to a range or anything. I mean, that was just for the bow. So if you're just watching this and you're thinking about getting into it, you don't have to break the bank. You really don't. You can get in for well under $800 for your first year, as long as you're careful and you pay attention and you have somebody who's available to teach you. And a lot of times at these stores and these places that sell them, the guy behind the counter will be more than happy to teach you if you're willing to come in on an off day, especially if you buy the bow from them. That's what we found is, if we go in there and they're slow and not anything's really going on, the guy that set us up is more than happy to teach us and watch us and let us know what we're doing right or what we're doing wrong or how to improve the group. But we just got to make it in when they're not busy. So again, I hope that you found this video helpful, and this is actually, in fact, the end of the video. And we really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll give Hannah a little bit more of a heads up on some of our future videos to try and get her so that she's responding and active in the video more than just like what you hear kind of in the background. All right. Thank you guys and have a great day.